Get framed at Main Street Frame in Albia. Now, near the southwest corner of the historic Albia Square. Your memories get framed and can be printed at Main Street Frame. Your pictures could be waiting on your phone or waiting in storage boxes. Bring those memories to life with Main Street Frame. They print on photo paper or canvas. And of course, they have a wide variety of frames to choose from and custom sizes. What else would you like to frame? Get it framed at Main Street Frame. You name it, we can frame it. A completely creative way to honor your life. Main Street Frame in Albia.
Welcome back to Life, Death, and Everything in Between. Today we've got something very dear to us that we're going to be talking about. We have an event coming up, and it's called the Children's Grief Camp. Brian, would you like to introduce our guest?
Yes, I'd like to introduce Kim Higginbotham. Thanks, Kim, for coming. She is a social worker, case manager from the Monroe County Hospital.
Yes, that's right.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. Talk about something that's very dear to my heart as well.
Thank you.
So, thank you for coming. Can you kind of give us let's give us a little background of you and what brought you to Albia, and just to kind of bring us up to date here.
Okay. So I actually started at the hospital in 2004 with Hospice of Monroe County. I was hired as the social worker bereavement coordinator. Prior to that, I had been doing in-home family children counseling. So my degree's in social work. I went into family counseling and then transitioned into hospice services. So I've been at the hospital since 2004, started with Hospice of Monroe County. Part of my role with bereavement coordination was providing grief services to not just the families that we serve through hospice, but really the entire county. So that led into starting some grief groups for the adults in the county, and there was a lot of benefit to it. I saw the community that it formed among the adults that were coming, and we would hold those every other month in the evenings. And I did that for several years while I was with hospice.
So when did we start the Children's Grief Camp? Do you remember what year that was?
Yes, so we started the Children's Grief Camp in 2011. And that was actually something that I had kind of been thinking about incorporating for a couple years. We had a period of time where we had some hospice patients that were young and had young children in the home that they were still caring for. And as I was providing individual grief services to those kids of the hospice patients that we had, I just saw that there was really a bigger need to address children's grief in Monroe County, especially from all the young patients that we had had. The closest kids grief camp that was available was Amanda the Panda in Des Moines.
Okay.
And for some of the families that we were serving, I just noticed that, getting kids up to Des Moines for a grief camp to address their specific grief needs just really wasn't very feasible. So I started thinking about how could I create something that would help address the grief needs of children in Monroe County. And as I was talking about that, a coworker and a dear friend of mine was, just kind of like, it's a great idea, you just need to do it. So to be honest, for a couple years I really wanted to, but I was a little scared. It's a big endeavor. I'd never done it before. So it was Melanie Briggs that just kind of really gave me the push to say, you don't know unless you just do it. So at the time, I had reached out to Sasha Medloff from Hamilton's Grief Academy. She was very gracious, and she spent a lot of time with me on the phone just talking to me about how I go about creating a safe atmosphere, especially targeting the special needs with kids as they grieve, because they grieve different than adults do. And so I wanted to create an environment that allowed them to grieve in the way that they naturally do. So she was great about kind of giving me a foundation, and then I went to conferences and took classes and did a lot of research into creating. So our first grief camp was held in 2011, and we've had one every year since then, with the exception of COVID. Sure. Obviously, we had to take that year off. But
now,
go ahead, Bob.
Was that first one, was it just Monroe County people at that time?
Basically, yes. We did reach out a little bit just because I knew some people who said, hey, I know a family in Appanoose County or Wapello County. And so they got invited, but predominantly it was Monroe County. And mainly it was the children of hospice patients that we had served. So I think when I looked back that first year, I had 12 kids that attended. And I mean, I've had as many as 20-some, and I've had as little as a handful.
But now it's opened up to anyone that wants to come.
Now it's opened up to anyone.
Yeah.
So as long as they're able to travel to Albia, we hosted at the Family Life Center at Trinity Methodist Church. They've been very gracious in allowing me that space there, which works perfect because we have it in the gymnasium, so it allows lots of space for the games that we incorporate, but enough room to set up tables, and it has a kitchenette area. So it's set up, we always serve a meal, have a snack, and then all the crafts and projects that we do, all of that is provided. So, you know, we've had great donations. I think, you know, that very first year I reached out to Bob and Richard Tharp and said, hey, this is my idea, but I kind of need some money to help fund it. And so they were great. You know, they were like, you just tell us how much you need and we have it for you. So since then, Sinnott and Tharp have been great sponsors and supporters of it. And then I've also gotten donations. The Community Betterment Fund for a while, I got their grant to help fund it. My biggest thing was I did not want anything getting in the way of a child being able to attend. So everything is free. All the supplies, the food. I have volunteers that come and help.
And the important thing for, you know, the listeners to know is this is completely nonprofit. Every dollar that comes in goes directly to the grief camp,
Absolutely.
which I think is very important.
Do you see kids coming back year after year, the same kids?
Yes. So that is the other thing that I think is great is, you know, it's not you can only come one time and that's it.
Right.
You know, I've had kids that have been there most of those years, you know, as long as they don't age out. So they can come back. I try to do different activities each year because we do have kids that return year after year because they see a lot of benefit to it.
Do you have like a follow-up? Are you able to follow up with some of the kids you meet with after the camp to see how they're doing and progressing?
Yeah, I kind of leave that up to the families.
Sure.
If they're open to it. It's, you know, I hear some really incredible stories that, you know, their child comes to camp and then goes home and, you know, just how they're able to share what they've learned. One of my favorite stories is I remember we had a little boy there, and I think he was there with his sister, and they had lost a parent.
Okay.
And that year, one of our activities was letter writing. And in their situation, they didn't get an opportunity to tell their dad goodbye. So they wrote a letter, and the person that had brought them had kind of followed up with me to share this story. They got home and they were so excited to show their mom everything that they had done at camp. And she kind of turned away from them because she started crying and she didn't want them to see that. And the little boy walked around and grabbed her and said, Mom, it's okay. We learned today that it's okay to cry.
Wow.
That's nice. That's making a difference in one person.
Absolutely.
One child, you've done your job.
The one thing we hear too for any of the volunteers that help you, like everyone says, it's just the most rewarding thing to help with that. You know,
Absolutely.
and working with
Kids
the
are
kids.
amazing.
Yep.
They're amazing. You'd be surprised how resilient they are and how open they are to sharing what they're going through. One of my rules is you can bring your child, but you can't stay.
Right.
Because what we've learned is kids maybe might be a little reserved to really open up and share because they don't want mom and dad to worry about them. You know,
Right.
they already see that they're hurting and going through things and they don't want to add to that. So, you know, I tell parents, you can bring them and you can meet up afterwards. We always end with a balloon release. But during the time that they're here, we really want them just to be here and experience it. And I've had parents over the years be really worried, like, I don't know, you know, sometimes my kid acts up and
Right.
they have behavior issues, and so I really think I might need to stay. And one year I had a dad, he just really was not comfortable to leave his son. And so I said, I'll tell you what, why don't you sit out in the parking lot? in case we have an issue, I will call you on your cell phone if we do. And so he went out, sat in his car for 2 hours, came in and said, is everything okay? I haven't heard from you. And I said, everything's great. He's just fine, and you can go home. So, you know, kids get in that environment and they recognize, oh my gosh, there's other kids here that are experiencing the same things I am and feeling the same ways I am. And so it just creates kind of that bond and that really safe space that allows them to open up.
Do you see some of these kids developing a relationship with the other kids and continue to have an ongoing relationship afterwards?
I have. There's been a few cases. I know my daughter, for one, started coming as a participant after my dad had passed away, just to kind of help her deal with some things. And she really bonded with another girl who was there after losing her dad. And so they stayed friends for several years, even after they had both aged out from going to the camp. So, yeah, they do. They form those special friendships.
And you don't have to lose, it's not like you have to lose a parent, or, you know, it can be any loss, correct?
Absolutely.
Even a pet, for that matter.
We have had kids there because they've lost a pet, which I think is amazing.
Right.
Because you lose a family pet, it's like losing a family member, and sometimes you really struggle on how to deal with that void. So we've had kids there that have lost a pet. I had a really unique situation one year where a girl was there, her sister was stillborn. So she was there grieving that. And even though, you know, we may not think that kids recognize that as a loss, it was a way for her to share, you know, the things that she had been looking forward to experiencing with a sister that then were suddenly taken away from her. And so that was really special for her that year, was to give some attention and voice to what that grief was like for her.
Okay, sure. So how many people do you have on your staff that work during one of these? Is it just you?
Well, I'm the one that kind of organizes it all. Depending on how many kids, it kind of depends on how many volunteers. I've had as many as 10 volunteers when we've had a lot of kids, and I've had as little as me and one other person if the numbers are small. It really just depends on who the kids are. So when I have someone register for the camp, I send out a questionnaire that I ask the parent or guardian to fill out. It tells me a little bit about the child, what the death is that they're experiencing or the loss, and, you know, any special needs. So I try to pair volunteers with kids that I feel like can make a connection and really address those needs of that particular child.
Okay.
So, you know, it really just depends on the group of kids I have.
So who can volunteer?
Anybody can volunteer.
So like me and Bob and Abigail, we could
Absolutely.
step
Well, I
forward.
mean, they're not going to we can't have you there probably. That would
Well,
probably
Bob and Abigail could volunteer then?
Yeah.
Clarify that.
Yeah.
How do people register?
So there's contact information, but particularly they reach out to me. I think the hospital is really good about creating on their social media a way to register through the hospital, and I think I'm listed as a contact person. But predominantly, I always, you know, I have my work number and my cell phone number that people can reach out to me if they have questions or want to register.
And we'd be able to put that on our website too?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you tell us about some of the special things that we've had in the past?
Yeah.
Some of the ones that have been really
Some
meaningful.
favorites?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the beginning, Bill Dewey had doves.
Yep. Oh,
And
yeah.
so he was always so great about bringing out doves, and the kids would each get to have a dove in their hand if they wanted to, and then watch that, and then we would do a dove release all at once. So that was really cool. Kids always loved that. The last couple of years, we've been blessed by having therapy dogs come to grief camp, and the kids have loved that. So through Crisis Canines of the Midlands, we've had dogs come every year and just be there. In the beginning, I didn't devote enough time allowing the kids with the dogs, and I realized how much they really loved that and wanted more time with them. So I kind of make sure I have an hour that I really give. And so that's just for, the handler of the dogs to kind of share a little bit about what the dogs do and their purpose. And then the kids have time to spend with the dogs. So that's been a really cool thing. We always end the day with a balloon release. And like I said, when guardians or parents drop off the kids, I make sure to let them know, hey, at this time we're going to do the balloon release. You're welcome to come back and participate in that. A lot of families do that. It's just kind of a special way to wrap up the day. And so those have kind of been favorites. We do lots of activities. I always try to make sure that the activities are tied into a coping mechanism or a way that, kids can take what they're feeling and have a positive place to put that.
Sure.
So one of the things we really talk about is all the emotions that you feel with grief. And I think a lot of times we don't recognize all the ways that it affects us. We think just emotionally, but there's such a mental and physical aspect, which you guys probably know as well, to grieving. And so, that happens with kids too. So one of the things that we do is they do kind of a body outline. And on that body outline, they have to draw on themselves all the different places in their body that they have felt grief. So sometimes that's stomach pain, sometimes that's headaches, dizziness, whatever way they feel like it portrays in their body. And then we talk about, okay, with all of those things, what are ways that we can positively address those emotions that help us through what we're feeling.
So I know you've also got bigger dreams with this.
Yeah, I have lots of dreams with
Why
this.
don't you tell us about some of those?
Well, so right now we just do one big group, and I've always done ages 5 to 14. Sometimes that's really hard to find projects and things that a 5-year-old can do, but that's also beneficial for a 14-year-old. So I would really like to be able to split it up into age groups that are a little closer together and gear those to those specifics. So maybe 5 to 7, 8 to 10, 11 to 14, and have those, because you can do so many, you can dive deeper with those smaller age groups into what really to be specific to them. I'd love to offer it in more than Monroe County. I'd love to go to other communities and provide a grief camp there. I know sometimes, it's hard to get places where even just someone traveling from another county over to Albia. So I'd love to travel with it. Of course, that requires more volunteers and more funds, and we always have to find a good place to host this if I would do it in each community. So.
And the thing with all dreams, it all comes down to usually we need more funding. So
Yeah.
if there's anyone out there that would be willing to help us with that, you can contact Kim. You can stop at the funeral home. Also, you can go to First Iowa State Bank, and Jen Sennett's there that you can give donations to. We would be just happy as can be to have more donations. Another thing you can do, if you are having a funeral with us, or any funeral home for that matter, and you're looking for any memorial ideas that you're not sure where people could donate to, we would love to see you include the Children's Grief Camp, because we definitely need all the funds we can get to make the experience for the kids even better. Is there anything else that you can think of that we want to touch on?
My biggest message has been, I want to make sure that each child that attends, they feel like everything is geared uniquely to them, for them. I want them to walk away and feel like that day was completely about what they needed and helping them going forward. So, it's my prayer every time I have a grief group. I think, the first year I was so wound up, I don't think I slept at all the night before, just excited
Right,
and
yep.
nerves, and you just want everything to go so well, because surprisingly, predominantly, the kids are there because they've lost a parent or a sibling. And to me, that's incredibly heartbreaking that kids so young are already experiencing such a significant loss in their life. So, I think it's so important. The volunteers that come and help me, they do it because they have a heart for it as well, which I think just magnifies the experience for each kid. I've had volunteers that have gotten the birthday of the kid that they've been paired with, and they've sent them birthday cards every year going forward. And that's the bond that I want to come
rewarding.
out of that, is that they know that there are people out there that love and care for them, and that they are supported, and they never have to feel like they're walking that alone. I also always try to make sure the information that gets sent home with the kids, there's some information in there for parents on how to help their child through their child's grief, because it is different. It looks different than how adults grieve. So I always try to send some information home with the parents, just the language that they use and how to address if behaviors do come up that probably are related to their grieving. So that way they know how to help support their child going forward.
I got one last quick question. Have you had any of the children that have went on to become adults come back and volunteer to help?
Yes, yes, which I think is amazing.
That's
I've
awesome.
had some of the kids that attended, and now they've outgrown it, come back and be special speakers to the kids that are there,
Nice.
which I think is awesome that they want to come back and either volunteer or speak. I talked about my daughter who first started attending as a child, so she would have been 7 when I first started doing it, and now she comes back, and she's one of the ones that helps me with it every year. She loves it. She loves coming back and being able to give back to the kids when she knows what it was like to go through it as a child. So
That's awesome.
yeah, she's developed a love for it as well.
We don't have a date yet set for the one coming up, but we're probably looking at sometime in October. Is that
Yep.
right?
Yes, towards the end of October. It's usually always on a Saturday. I do 10 to 2 typically, and I do provide a meal and a snack. Like I said, everything is always provided, no cost to anyone that attends. There is a registration deadline that I put on there, but I will never turn anyone away. One year I had a dad show up with his 3 kids. He had lost his wife just 2 weeks earlier, the kids' mom, and he remembered seeing a flyer somewhere, and he showed up 20 minutes before it started, and he was like, I didn't register, I didn't even know if I should bring them today, but I just came wondering if maybe they could still attend, and I said, absolutely. And so, we will always figure it out. I always buy extra stuff just in case that happens, because it has happened more than that time, but I never want to make it to where someone can't attend if they want to be there.
Well, Kim, thank you so much for coming today. I think this is a great topic, and we hope if anyone at all is in need, please contact Kim, sign up, contact either of the funeral homes, and we'll get you in the right direction.
Remember,
Where are they going to find us at?
you can find us on TikTok, Apple Podcasts, Instagram, and Facebook. And remember, life is short, death is certain, and everything in between is worth talking about.
See you next time.